Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. With Red Bull taking their third 1-2 of the season just 4 races in, people want to know, when is another team going to be able to compete with Red Bull yet again, and which of the 3 close challengers are the most likely? Mercedes seem the most confident to this end, Lewis Hamilton saying that when their new upgrades arrive in a couple of weeks time, they will be in a much better place come the Imola Grand Prix. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. First of all, a quick update on the sprint drama between Verstappen and Russell. Max Verstappen made some further comments to the Dutch media that evening, calling George Princess George. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. So, defending on the outside is not allowed because Princess George is sitting there. I know it's his problem. So, this seems to be put behind the both of them today, but don't get me wrong, when these two are next to each other on track, it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to when that happens. Also, poor Charles Leclerc, man, he is one off, I believe, tying the record with Valtteri Bottas for the driver with the most ever pole positions without a world championship win, which Leclerc's going to get to soon if this keeps up. 19 poles, 5 wins, and okay, some of those have been his fault, but largely, what are you meant to do when there's a rocket ship behind you with incredible race pace? So I feel kind of bad for Charles, really, but it is what it is. And even as Leclerc says, Red Bull in another league, Ferrari improved this weekend, they look more competitive. They have been historically quite good around here in Baku in general, as has Leclerc individually. It's difficult to say whether this was a big Ferrari step forward because they had a great weekend, Ferrari by all standards, whereas Aston Martin had a bit of a shocking weekend actually by their standards, the DRS issues, all this stuff that happened with them. But yet Alonso finished the race like 8 tenths behind Leclerc, and even I think Alonso said in the post-race that the conditions today with the sun going in and it clouding over were better for the tyre life in that second stint, and there was a good chance that towards the end of the race, if the sun had been out, then we know that the Ferrari's tyre take is not so good, and they possibly would have fallen off further. Alonso reckons he could have got a podium had the sun stayed out, and then he says, well, Miami is next weekend, and it's certainly going to be sunny there, you would think. So that's when Ferrari might struggle more, and Alonso is very confident that he can get back on the podium next weekend. Red Bull were probably 7 tenths better than everyone. We'll see the full stats over the coming days, but another absolute demolition job, right? And these are the average, advantages over the next best car. Bahrain was almost 40 seconds. Saudi was 21 seconds over P3. Australia was under a safety car, and then Azerbaijan 21 seconds again. So pretty similar stuff, it's got to be said, and it's not looking good for the competition right now in Formula 1. It's not just their straight line speed, but we know that around a circuit like Baku, most teams are trying to deload their rear wing as much as possible. The Red Bull doesn't really need to because it's so slippery. They can run a higher rear wing angle, be better throughout the majority of the lap, maintain their tyre life, and then still be rapid in a straight line with DRS open. They were a few kph up on what Mercedes or Ferrari were able to do in a straight line, and that is expected. But for Mercedes and Ferrari to be able to even try and compete on the straight line and even try and make an overtake happen, they had to sacrifice performance elsewhere in the lap. And even Max admitted after the race that, yeah, they've kind of got a rocket ship, there's still things to fine-tune, still things to improve on, but you would imagine that Red Bull's potential improvements they can make will at some point trail off, right? They can't keep making 3 tenths of a second upgrades like the other cars might be able to, and eventually that's got to peter out. Whether it's ever going to get to a point where they are being competitive with any other team rather than in a league of their own, that's a big question, and Leclerc was pretty happy to just get P3 there because I don't think he expected anything better than that throughout the race. So Ferrari have some plans up their sleeves, right? They brought a few things this weekend in Baku. They will be introducing new upgrades next weekend in the Miami Grand Prix, and apparently will only introduce upgrades they believe can have an instant impact to the success of their car. So that is slightly promising for Ferrari, but we know that these upgrades for Ferrari have been planned before the season even began. This is not a deviation from their concept, and it's quite clear looking at the Red Bull pace advantage that whatever they're doing, that seems to be the way to go, right? And Mercedes, I think, are understanding that. They're not going to turn up with a Red Bull, a black Red Bull or whatever, come Imola. They are going to keep some of their own ideas in there for sure, because if you deviate entirely, you're going to take a massive step backwards. So there's a risk reward at play here, but Ferrari are looking to take some further steps forwards. And even these comments I thought were incredible from George Russell. He said this after the sprint race, where he said that by their calculations, Mercedes, they could fully take the rear wing off of their car and Red Bull would still be faster in a straight line. Now, I don't exactly understand how that could possibly be true, but he says that's not even a joke. So, apparently they've done the calculations of Red Bull, I guess with DRS open are so quick that even a Mercedes with no wing, if they could like detach the rear wing and magic it to reappear when they got to the corners, like they would still be faster apparently, Red Bull. So whatever they're doing with that DRS and stalling out the diffuser, and the only way I can imagine this is true is just the way that Red Bull's DRS works and stalling out the beam wing and the other elements of the car so that the rear elements, not just the rear wing, generates so much less downforce. If you had no rear wing, then you're still getting downforce from those other elements. So I still don't exactly know how this could be true, but whatever. Red Bull have obviously found a trick and are seeing a serious performance advantage as a result of things. Just wanted to share Hamilton's thoughts on this as well. Some optimism after the race. I mean, Hamilton, all things considered, given the safety car situation, did have a great recovery drive. Couldn't get past Sainz, but no one could really pass around Baku, it seems. Just because the track's got a massive straight doesn't really mean that overtaking's going to be spectacular. The DRS zone wasn't particularly long. We've seen it in Monza at the past as well. Like, overtaking doesn't just happen because there's a big straight. And I've never been a fan of the Baku track, to be honest. It relies on chaos to be entertaining. And if a track relies on chaos and crashes and all this to be entertaining, it's just not a good track in my opinion. I've never thought it was any good. But Hamilton does say that with their upgrades arriving soon, they'll be in a much better position.
The car is really hard to drive this year. But every now and then it kind of feels a little bit better for me, and today wasn't perfect, but I had good, pretty decent pace. So it just shows that we are on the right path, and I think once we get the upgrades, we'll be in a much better place.
But it looks like the team did do fairly well this weekend in getting the most out of that car.
Yeah, I think we did. I think there was great prep before coming here. A couple of days at the factory, plenty of sim running, and really proud of the team. Big thank you to everyone back at the factory. Just the mentality in the team is great. There's such a winning mindset, and everyone's so focused on progressing and getting to where we know we can get to. It's just taking some steps. So I don't think there are any mistakes. There are any lessons. I don't think there are. This is failure. I think this is just the build to getting to where we need to be. Everyone's staying positive in the garage. Everyone's just doing their job to the best of their ability, and that's all we can ask for right now until we get those upgrades, which will hopefully put us much more in the fight.
We're told, Imola, if that is the case, you've only got one more race to go. So what does Miami look like to you right now? It's going to be a fantastic event, we know that, but in terms of the race you're going to have to go through there, what does that look like to you right now?
I don't know. I think we knew already from early on that we would have quite a few races till this upgrade, so it's been just counting the days down or counting the weeks down.
Counting the sleeps.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't currently quite know exactly how good or the upgrade will be. We know it will be a start of something new for us. But Miami should be, I hope it's better pace-wise than it is here. Last year we were bouncing there a lot, so I think we're in a much better place this year with our car. So hopefully, I hope we're a little bit closer to the guys there. Might not be as close to the Red Bulls because they're rapid, but maybe we can fight the Astons. Maybe that would be amazing.
So Hamilton is still confident, and the team says they're progressing. This isn't, a failure. What happened this weekend? We're building from where we are now to where we need to be, and talking mainly about upgrades, putting them back in the fight. Now, what is that the fight for? Is that the fight for the win? You would imagine so. Red Bull are a long way away, but then again, this particular circuit should have been very good for Red Bull, right? It was expected that Baku would be incredibly good for that car, and Leclerc put it on pole by 2/10, right? It's got to be said. That is the Leclerc-Baku factor in part, but also the Red Bull wasn't quite so ridiculous this weekend as I thought it might be. Now, in fairness, did they turn down the engine in the last few laps? They may well have done, right, because they weren't pulling away as far towards the end as they were early on. They were putting serious time into Leclerc in the first few laps of that hard tyre stint. So I don't know exactly what to think about that, but this should have been an unbelievable circuit for them. Obviously, they 1-2'd it, and it wasn't even close, but maybe based on this evidence, there are other circuits where other cars might be able to be competitive, and Hamilton is confident that could be the case. So he reckons we don't exactly know how good they're going to be, but the upgrades will be part of something new, and also saying that, yeah, those upgrades will put us back in the fight. Toto Wolff also gave some comments on this as well. There's been a lot of discussion over the sprint race weekend and the fact that it's terrible, and we'll discuss the format of that probably tomorrow or the next day, because there's been lots of criticisms to that end. But as Wolff says, right, the pace in free air was pretty similar between the Mercedes, the Ferraris and the Astons, it was ultimately a situation of just no overtaking was really possible, so you were just stuck where you were. The Red Bulls just sailed away. If we can get the platform right, though, I think we can close the gap this year. It's not about adding points of downforce, more about giving the drivers a car they have confidence in. That's very interesting because it wasn't long ago that Toto Wolff said, yeah, the car doesn't really have the downforce it needs. And now he's saying, well, it actually isn't so bad, but the drivers aren't confident. And that's also what Hamilton said in that clip, right? That he doesn't quite have, the car's difficult to drive. Now, let's be honest here, it's not as difficult to drive as the W13 was last year. The porpoising they had on the straight there last year was an absolute shambles. I mean, Hamilton's spine is definitely having a better time in this year's car than last year's car. Remember, Baku last year was an absolute disaster. So Mercedes have done a better job on building a car that is, I suppose, slightly more drivable, but I don't think it's massively so. Hamilton still struggles with having the confidence, especially in qualifying settings where, you know, you need maximum ability and belief in your car to extract the most from it. So there's a debate as to exactly what these upgrades are going to entail. Andrew Chauvelin also says that, you know, couldn't quite get past Sainz in the end, need to bring more performance to the car. And yeah, so Miami is going to be the same situation to Baku more than likely. And also it's a track where they will go over the curbs slightly more than we'd see here in Baku. And it has been a circuit, or that's the rumor right now, that the Red Bull is very good over the curbs and in ground clearance and stuff like this. So maybe it's going to be even better there. And there are some long straights in Miami as well. So that's going to be another Red Bull circuit. They won there last year, of course, with Max Verstappen. So no real surprise. And just one final comment here from Lewis Hamilton, I believe, after the Grand Prix, where he was asked the question, like, when's the contract renewal happening? How long is he going to stay around for? And Hamilton says, I'm thinking long term. I don't want to just stay here for another year. I want to stay longer than that. So Charles Leclerc, yes, he got a podium. There's been rumours that he's going to go to Mercedes at some point. It may still happen. I would probably expect it to happen, but it's probably not going to be anytime soon with these words from Lewis Hamilton. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.